stand up and play with it, right? Get to know the OS, the different new features. Same thing with SQL Server. SQL Server, we have SQL Server 2014 that's recently been announced, and we want to be able to get our hands on it and play with the new bits and see what's on the horizon. But are those resources available to us? Well, that's where Azure comes in. And Windows Azure virtual machines are a perfect solution for this, right? One, it's extremely easy. As we're going to see today, the interface for Azure makes things really, really simple and really easy to follow. All right? And it's scalable. Now, what I mean by this is Windows Azure as a whole has a bunch of different options. Virtual machines are not the only things you can do in Azure. You can do websites, you can do mobile services, you can do networks, you can do a whole slew of things. When we're talking about virtual machines, however, the service offering is called infrastructure as a service, meaning that we can spin up a piece of infrastructure. In this case, it's a server, right? We're just spinning up a server with a couple of clicks. And it makes it really easy for us to scale up and out. Availability, and this is what's really nice, it's in the cloud. So today's demo, I'm on my laptop, and I'm going to log into the Azure portal, and I'm going to show you stuff there. But what happens if this laptop craps out? Well, easy. I just go to another laptop that has, or another machine that has internet connectivity, and I log into the portal, and I'm able to do everything I can do in Azure from any machine. It's my data available to me anywhere, anytime. And also, Microsoft, when you set this stuff on the back end, they actually have a 3 nines availability that they guarantee you. Now, flexibility, and this is what's really cool about virtual machines and virtualization in general, is you can just kind of put anything you want on it. But the nice thing about Azure virtual machines is that they support all these different options. You can spin up a Windows server. They do support Linux server. And yes, strangely enough, recently they have announced that they now support Oracle on the Windows Azure platform. So if you're a DBA, and this is extremely common, where you're not only supporting SQL Server, but you're supporting Oracle as well, spin up a VM with Oracle on it, or spin up a Windows VM and install Oracle on it in Azure, play with the new bits, get to know the stuff, and that way you're that much better professional. And finally, value. All right. So Windows Azure machines, they have different pricing structures, and we're going to see this in a minute. And recently, they've adjusted some of the pricing, and they continue to adjust pricing based on customer demands and needs. So prices over the last 2 years have just been dropping, and Microsoft has been very, very aggressive about this. Now, if you have an MSDN subscription, and a lot of companies do have these, the nice thing that you can do is you can use Azure with your MSDN subscription. You just have to activate your Azure benefits. Now, what we see here on screen are the different types of MSDN subscriptions that you can have. And what they do is, the new way is that depending on your MSDN subscription, you get basically an allowance. So the highest there, the Visual Studio Ultimate with MSDN, you get $150 worth of credits for Azure. If you do the middle of the road, you get 100. Now, what does that mean? Well, we'll see this in a second. Each of the different services have different pricing structures. So, for example, storage, they charge you by the gigs per month. In virtual machines, they actually charge you for how long they're up and running. All right. Now, here's another chart that shows the different pricing structures for the different VMs. When we spin up a VM in Azure, you can choose from different template sizes. So here we have extra small, small, medium, large, and extra large. Now, based on the sizes, you get different things. You get a different number of virtual cores, or virtual CPUs, if you will. You get a different amount of memory. And based on the size of the VMs that you get, you also get a different price per hour. So you can see that the smallest VM charges 2 cents per hour as long as that VM is up and running. And the most expensive one you have is the extra large, and they charge 72 cents an hour. Now, how do we figure out how much that's going to cost us? Well, the nice thing is that there's a nice little calculator that Microsoft has provided, and we're going to jump to that real quick. So on the Windows Azure website, which is windowsazure.com, we can get to this calculator. And this calculator, as you can see, I mentioned earlier, there are all different types of services that Azure offers. But today we're going to focus on the virtual machines. Now, as we scroll down here, we see that there's a little slider here for just virtual machines. Now, this virtual machine here, this slider at the top, is just for a vanilla Windows server, right? No applications installed on it. However, we're SQL Server people, right? So we want to know what the pricing will be like a Windows Azure VM with SQL Server on it. So we're actually going to come down here to the SQL Server sliders. Now, the nice thing here is that it breaks it out depending on what version or what edition of SQL Server we want to use. So if you're going to be using a virtual machine that's going to be public facing, let's say you're doing a website application or something that's going to be public facing, you're going to want to use the web edition because that's the one that's licensed for public use. However, let's say you just want to create an application that's just going to be private for you and your company, or you're just playing around. You'll want to look at the standard or enterprise licensing here. So let's take a look at what a standard VM would look like. So we're going to choose the small, so based on that chart we saw earlier, and as you choose your different sizes, it tells you what the different differences are between the small, medium, large. So this one is 1.6 gigahertz CPU with 1.75 gigs of RAM. Now, if I adjust this slider, it tells me, all right, I'm going to have one VM, and since I chose a small, it's going to be charging us 64 cents an hour. That's based on the edition and the size. And this number here is how much it costs to have that VM running 24/7 for an entire month. Okay? So with this calculator, if you were going to sit down with your company and try to figure out, okay, we want to take all our development environments and maybe put them in Azure just to try it out.